Hey guys, so we're back for a drive along finally after what, 2 years? Actually I think just a year almost. But so in this drive along, I'm gonna go over what it's like driving this car. Well, first I'll start with building it, the basics. We'll start with supporting mods, you know, the supercharging, and then we will kind of move on to how it actually drives. So I want to start with actually the basics on building these first. So before you do anything else with these SN95 cars, the first thing you should know is that they're all modular. Hold up. That was 100. That's a little. So, what you first need to know when you buy a 96 to 98 car, or even an 04 car, excuse me, people know about these cars as the Ford modular cars, and they know that because, or they know them like that because the 4.6 liters were Ford's new modular engine family. From 95 to 96, they went from the you know, the old pushrod 5-liter Windsors, and they went to the 4.6 in 96, and they called it, you know, the brand new modular platform. And that's what everything 4.6 is based on. You have you know, the 2-valve 4.6s, the 4-valve 4.6s that came in SVTs, Terminators, Cobras. And that even includes, I'm so sorry, that even includes the 3 valves. Pretty much anything 4.6 has that modular connotation. Now, it doesn't mean they're necessarily exactly like Legos, you know. There are different plants. So early on in the 4.6's development, there were 2 plants. There's the Romeo and the Windsor plant. And for some reason, they did you know, very crucial parts of the engines a little differently. So theoretically, like, a Romeo block and a Windsor block are the same, but not really. You know what I mean? They serve the same purpose, but like, there are differences in the main cap bolts, you know, bearings, you know, the amount of amount of bolts on the flywheel, stuff like that. So there are differences within the Ford modular families, but the idea is that overall they're modular. And so people often sometimes refer to these as modular cars because of that. So like I said, the modular thing went up to the 3-valve 4.6s, and that's generally where the story ends. So people generally think, like, you know, the modular era died in like 2009, because that's, you know, the last year they did any kind of 4.6. They had the 3 valves and shit. What most people don't realize is the Ford modular era never actually died. And what I mean by that is Ford Coyotes are modular. They're same engine family as the 4.6. So when you get into thinking about throwing a Coyote in a modular car, you're actually thinking about just throwing another modular engine into another modular car. Oh, Michigan roads, I'm so sorry. Recently moved. But that's essentially what you're thinking of when you're thinking of a Coyote swap, is you're just throwing in another modular motor, because you'll see, it's pretty awesome. You can throw 4.6 engine mounts. You can get a 4.6 K-member and a 4.6 transmission and any 4.6 flywheel and clutch that made up to, you know, 8-bolt cranks. You can do any combination of that, and all of those 4.6 parts fit on the Coyote. So getting Coyotes in the car and getting them on the getting them connected to the drivetrain is nothing. There are people who say you can use the stock 4.6 K member. I don't like that, because you actually have to mess with an oil pan you have to mess with the Coyote oil pan to make that clear, or you have to mess with the 4.6 K-member, the stock one, which I wouldn't recommend anybody do unless they have a professional shop do it. And if you're going to pay a professional shop, say a few hundred to either cut up your K-member or cut up your oil pan, why wouldn't you just pay a couple hundred for a tubular K-member? You're saving away. QA1 has a nice budget K-member for these. It's like $300, and you can choose your engine mounts for it as well. So putting them in these cars are insanely easy. You just need the K-member pretty much just to make life easy, and then they plop right in. And like I said, transmissions bolt up to it because it's a modular. Any transmission that came attached to a modular engine will fit other modulars. Sometimes there's problems with input shafts, but you know, you're getting real specific, and a lot of the time that's a non-factor. So pretty much you can throw the Coyote in here, you get Ford's control pack, which I have a video on, you wire that up super simply, you wire up, you know, the cooling system, which is also super simple. 4.6 radiator will work completely fine for Coyotes. I find that Coyotes are actually naturally really cool engines. Because when I first built this thing, I had a lot of trouble with my fan wiring. Like a lot. It would not work most of the time. And it rarely, the only time you really overheat is when you're sitting at a stop for a very, very, very long time. Other than that, there's really no issue. I'll do another pull here quick. Hold on. And there we go. Oh, yeah, another 100. It's scary on Michigan roads. I mean, this is a smooth road, but because it's lower. Let's get back to it. Where was I? I believe I was at transmissions. So the transmissions bolt up. You do the wiring. Oh, and the radiator. Like I said, it's a naturally kind of cool engine. Ford did a good job with the thermodynamics of it, I guess. And it's really the 4.6 radiator, more than enough. You can easily wire up the 4.6 radiator fan just to the high switch the control pack gives you. And it works flawlessly. Oh, someone fucked up. Sorry. I might get over for this guy. Why is he stopping? He has a light on. I've never seen an ambulance, like a going ambulance, full stop at a red light when everyone's clearly waiting for them. Anyway, so you don't need anything besides the Coyote and the wiring to get a Coyote in these cars and running, because the radiator works fine. You get the radiator hoses you need from the Coyote control pack, other than the lower one. You can find that at O'Reilly's. Just have them give you hoses until you find one that looks like it'll fit. And that's pretty, maybe, you know, a fuel pump, you know, these old fuel pumps, if they're stock or they're stock replacement, replace it, pretty easy. But that's all you need, other than some fuel line fittings. I mean, it's super basic. There's not any real difficulty getting these running in these cars. Other than that, once you get it in there and it's running, the oil pan clearance is iffy. A lot of guys like to lower these, and I like to lower these. These cars look great lowered, and they came looking like monster trucks. But if you lower them, you have to be careful, because the Coyote oil pan also sits lower than the 4.6 oil pan, and I have personally already busted one. It took like 3 or 4 hard hits until finally I went over a road where like the middle of the road was perfectly up, and it finally just whapped it to the point where the pickup tube just couldn't suck up oil. It didn't even bust through, it just couldn't suck up oil. But that's pretty much it for getting these running. It's very, very hilariously simple. The truck variants have some good torque, they're fun. Also, I guess on that point, let's talk about the variants. Truck variant and the Mustang variant. if you're looking into this, you should also know the differences. The truck variants are technically rated at like 360 horsepower. The Mustang variants are rated at 420 for Gen 1. Excuse me. Now, that's because the truck has, you know, truck cams, because it has to be better at towing. Slightly lower compression, no windage tray. If you have the money when you do the swap, just put in a windage tray. It's some free horsepower. And other than that, realistically, you can kind of tune the motor to give you a little bit more power. It's a conservative tune Ford puts on the trucks because, well, it's towing, you know. You don't want to have a motor put out its max horsepower, which equals max stress, and then throw the towing capability on it, and so now you have an engine running over its maximum stress limit because you pumped out max power and you're pumping out the power needed to tow something. So realistically, even with the cams and lower compression, you can probably tune it up to at least 380 to 400 with a long tube and an intake. Very easy, you know. I mean, at least. If you get a really good tune in your hand, a really good tuner on your hands, I don't see why with long tubes and intake they couldn't get the truck motor to 400 horsepower. I really don't see why they couldn't. But once you get it in there and you get it tuned, any transmission works. So you have the 4WR whatever. It's the automatic. I don't know much about it. And then you have the T45 / the T360, whatever the hell, the other manuals that came later. I believe they came into the cars at 01. If they all bolt to a modular, they all bolt to the Coyote. I have a stock T45 actually, and it's not perfect because these cars get beat on. It wasn't perfect when I bought it, but it hasn't gotten any worse since I bought it, which I think is hilarious. This thing has held 400 horsepower just fine, and now it holds about 650 horsepower just fine. It's hilarious. And my flywheel and clutch are also hilarious. I have a XD Racing clutch rated for 400 horsepower, and I have a McLeod steel flywheel. And for some reason, both of those have held up to the Supercharger as well, very well. They hook very well and everything like that. So I just have to keep reiterating, man. Anything 4.6, for the most part, just bolts up to these motors. It's hilarious, and you're good. And I did want to say, with the automatic swaps, you can get kits, not kits, you can get an extra harness that goes along with the Ford Coyote control pack, and it will allow the Coyote computer to control the 4WR, whatever, the automatic. So you can have an automatic in these cars just fine, the old slush boxes, whatever. And that's, again, I think hilarious. So that's pretty much building it. Everything bolts. Oh, yes. Power steering and AC. You can use the old modular units, the modular power steering pump, the modular AC. Power by the Hour sells the brackets for them. It's pricey, but it's easy, you know, really, really easy. If you don't want to do the whole electric power steering conversion and everything, you can just have the old pump bolt up and the old AC pump bolt up. Both will directly bolt to the Coyote and work properly with Power by the Hour's kits with their belts and everything. And you do want the power steering, because on the modular cars, the power steering is also the power brakes. There's no vacuum canister or whatever. It is the brakes get their vacuum or their boost, I guess, off of the power steering pump. So you have to be careful with that. Ooh, God, that was hard. Also, for an exhaust, this is just the old 4.6 exhaust. I couldn't even tell you what mufflers they are. All I know is that they say Mac on them. Never heard of that company. But yeah, the way this car works is hilarious. So it's 2.5-inch pipe all the way back, except the headers are 3-inch, so it's a little conversion and it goes back. I want Borla, but you know, good luck getting those things for less than $1,000 goddamn dollars. Other than that, let's talk about driving it. It's just an engine. What do you want? It's very nice. These cars, what people don't consider with these Coyote swaps is they're not equivalent to the year you get them. It depends on the transmission. Like the 10 speeds and the S550s, you know, those are cheat codes. You'd have a hard time beating a 10 speed. But in terms of putting a Coyote in a manual SN95 and the Coyote staying in a stock manual S550, you might, depending on the skill level, find that the SN95 is faster because these are among the lightest chassis years you can get. So it's very nice in that sense where it's the lightest platform you could probably easily do this in. And beyond that, it's also a fairly well-rated platform. If you go on to old reviews of the SN95 chassis, like Retro Review, even Top Gear reviewed these chassis. It's hilarious that they did it, but yeah, Jeremy Clarkson reviewed these, and Retro Reviews, Jeremy Clarkson, everybody said that these Mustang chassis handle exceptionally well for a 90s. Sorry. Well, like I said, transmission got beat on. These 90s cars handle exceptionally well for what they are. They don't handle the best for a sports car. They handle insanely well for a pony car, like a 90s pony car / muscle car. Excuse me. You could argue that, you know, the 90s are really when these kind of became pony cars. But that's pretty much the deal, is you're putting it in a good platform. People think highly, at least people who actually know how well these perform. They think fairly highly of this chassis. That doesn't mean that they're perfect. You do want to brace them. There's a bunch of brace kits that you can do. You know, you can brace the frame, you can brace the rear subframe, you can brace the front subframe. There's even a strut tower brace that these cars normally come with. You'll find with the Coyote, you can't use that anymore. You need to find something custom. The strut tower brace does not fit over the Coyote, let alone a supercharged Coyote. So that's a thing you have to consider. But along with either stiffness or, you know, flexiness, either one you go with, these cars are known to understeer. That's why my car has a kind of insane amount of camber for what it is. That's just to handle the understeer, and that makes it kind of scary at the limit. These cars with camber, once you fix the understeer, the front has grip, but you feel the solid rear axle wanting to just flip out. So that's kind of concerning. But if you can handle it, it's fine. You know, it's a very good performing car. I've tracked this thing on like 2 days. And I was keeping up with the newer Salines. When I say newer, I mean like 3-valve Saline. So nothing impressive, but something this car necessarily shouldn't keep up with. Having started as a stock GT, it should not have been able to keep up with, you know, a late 2000 Saline. And I actually was waiting to pass the guy. So beyond that, these are just good performance cars. Coilovers help tremendously. A-arms help, even though you don't actually need the A-arms, as long as you get a K-member that fits the stock A-arms, which, you know, the cheap QA1 I mentioned will fit the stock A-arms. But my main point is these are very, 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 very good chassis for what they are. They're not perfect, but they're good. They're very good. There is a debate, which I will touch on for like a minute or so, about IRS swaps. So these cars, not necessarily these cars, but the new Edges, the 03 and 04 Terminators got independent rear suspension. If you daily your car and you have the fuck you money to spend on it, Of course you do it. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, people say, Michigan. People say like that is what you want to do because daily driving it, as you can tell, makes it a lot smoother. I'm on a solid rear axle, and these roads, oh, I fucking hate them so much. Solid rear axles aren't good. There's a reason the S550's switched. I'm now in the town area, I gotta be careful. But you can IRS swap it if you want. It's perfect for, everyday driving, but, and I will say this, people have said in the quarter miles and on the track that the IRSs do not provide noticeable increases. You know what I mean? On the drag strip, the IRSs are too heavy. They obviously weigh more. There's more parts involved with them. And on the track, it's also heavy. And you have to consider this. The IRS softens it up, but it doesn't necessarily improve handling, because IRS is good when the car is designed around having independent rear suspension. These cars were not. The independent suspension was designed around these solid axle cars. So you're not getting the full performance you would want out of an IRS. They're purely comfort. Does it make the cars more comfortable at the limit? Sure, but does it move the limit? I've heard a lot of people say it really doesn't. Once you get comfortable with these cars at the limit, the IRS doesn't really change anything. It just makes it more comfortable, which is something someone with, extra money would want. I totally understand that, but for performance purposes, not needed. And then finally, supercharging it. What do you want? It's a supercharged Coyote. Get a Gen 2R, a VMP blower for cheap. It'll shove you right at 650 horsepower. God damn it, I gotta turn here. Oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Right, living with this car. So, we can talk about living with this car for a minute. That's fine, because I actually daily this car whenever I can, which is a borderline stupid thing to do because it has a hood and everything and it's supercharged. But, oh, hey buddy, yeah, you're good. What you can do with these Coyote motors and what VMP advertises with their blowers is that they're very, very dailyable. VMP will advertise that you can slap their blowers on your daily and it keeps the drivability, which is totally true. This one's a little janky because I built it in a parking garage, and for some reason the power brakes don't play well. It's really weird. But you can slap these blowers on here and they're perfectly fine to daily drive. So whenever it's not raining, I normally have this car out. I can't turn left. So I will have this car out, and I've daily driven it for a long while. All you have to do is, the only thing you'll get tired of is the potholes, but they're potholes, you know what I mean? What you really want. That was a nice charger. Very nice charger. Dailying these things, it's, once you start modding them, they become uncomfortable. But if you're willing to put up with it, it's a stock Coyote block. If you're just doing a regular Coyote swap, it's just perfectly dailyable. And even if you supercharge it, they're perfectly dailyable. These cars sit with blowers on them around 650 to 700 horsepower tops reliably. You can go beyond that with risk, but you can get them up to 650, 700. And it's still dailyable. It's reliable, you know what I mean? So there's no real concern there about what this motor will handle. You don't need to worry about it blowing up with you on your way to work as long as you got a good one. Oh my God. More potholes. Yeah, they're perfectly dailyable. even supercharged. You know, you could technically turbo this thing, and as long as you got it running smoothly, ooh, good old supercharged surge. As long as you got it running properly with a turbo or twin turbos, still perfectly dailyable. The motors themselves are great, reliable up to 700, so you're perfectly fine. Obviously, there are exceptions where you just get a bad motor that only hits, you know, that has problems at 600. Maybe you get a really good motor that only has problems at 900, who knows? But all I can tell you is that my car boosted. I've been dailying this thing, and it honestly doesn't pose much of an issue once you get the wiring down. It's just fucking hilarious. So beyond that, that's pretty much it. Right, seats, get a bucket seat. I will put this in there. For performance, right? These cars have terrible seats. It's been known. They're absolutely ass. If you want good, if you want to track this thing at all, I suggest a bucket seat. The 2 track days I had were hell compared to tracking this thing with a seat in it. It's so much nicer. And that's pretty much it. That would be the only comfort thing I would tell you is a seat. But I mean, who wouldn't tell you a racing seat if you're gonna race it? You know what I mean? Sorry, good old shit like that. But that's Can I go left? You gonna let me go left? I think it's gonna let me go left. Yeah, well. So, yeah, that's pretty much where I'll leave it. This was improvised. There's a bit of a tangent. I didn't start with whatever I wanted to say, so I'm sorry if it was kind of uninteresting. But that's just what I wanted to say. I wanted to kind of take you guys on a drive, show you a few pulls while we talk about it. I really want to talk about actually doing the swap. There's not much to talk about once you get into modding it platform-wise. Because, you know, the Coyote motor just adds power and maybe a little bit of lightness, considering these are all aluminum, the 4.6s are iron. So there's no difference to modding the rest of the car. Plenty of people have their own opinions on how to mod these cars properly. And all the Coyote motor does is add power. So I'll leave it here. Oh, that guy's got a cool ass van. And I'll leave it here, and I'll release a video about the paint and the Cervini kit soon, because I do want to do that. I started filming it, and halfway through filming it, I got interrupted so much, I decided it was ass. So I'll film that again another day, maybe with a little bit more cohesion, and that'll be released soon. But this was just a little drive along so we can talk about it. And, fucking Christ. I will see you guys soon.